7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Everyone wants to be successful. And one way to get there is to figure out what habits can help us get there. I think reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is the best way to get started on this path. It would help if you were busier to read all 432 pages. Most people don't get it, but I do. So we made a summary of the whole book for you below. Stephen R. Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a book about improving yourself. It is based on Covey's belief that how we see the world depends on how we see ourselves. To change a situation, we have to change ourselves, and to change ourselves, we have to be able to change how we see things. What do successful people do every day? In the book's first part, the author talks about how many people who have a lot of success on the outside are still struggling with an inner need to improve their effectiveness and build healthy relationships with other people. Covey thinks that how we see the world is based on how we see ourselves. To change a situation, we have to change ourselves. We must be able to change how we see things. By looking at how success has been written about over the past 200 years, Covey found a significant change in how people have thought about it. In the past, a person's morals determined their success. Things like integrity, humility, fidelity, temperance, courage, justice, patience, industry, simplicity, modesty, and the golden rule. But around the 1920s, people switched to what Covey calls personality ethics to think about success, where success is a function of personality, public image, attitudes, and behaviors. People these days want answers quickly. They look at someone, a group, or a business that has done well and ask, "How do you do it? Teach me your techniques." But the shortcuts we try to find to save time and effort and still get what we want are temporary fixes. They don't address the real issue. Covey says the problem is how we see the problem. For real change to happen, we must let ourselves go through paradigm shifts. This means we can't just change our attitudes and actions on the surface. We have to change profoundly. Here are the 7 things that very successful people always do. Habits 1, 2, and 3 are about taking control of yourself and moving from dependent to independent. Habits 4, 5, and 6 are about getting better at working as a team, collaborating with others, communicating, and moving from being independent to dependent on others. Habit 7 is about continually improving and growing, including all the other habits. Let's talk about the 7 habits now. You can keep watching or click on a routine to skip to that part. Please click the subscribe button if you're new here and let us know in the comments below that you've subscribed. I'll reply to as many comments as I can. Number 1. Be proactive. We are in charge. How we want to live our lives is up to us. Use what you know about yourself to be proactive and take responsibility for your choices. The first habit that Covey talks about is taking charge. Humans are different from all other animals because we can look at ourselves, decide how to see ourselves and our situations, and control how well we do things. Simply put, you must be proactive to get things done. Reactive people are passive and believe that the world is happening to them. "I can't do anything" is something they say. "I am just like that." They think the problem is out there, but the problem is that they think this way. Reactivity becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and people who react feel hurt and out of control more and more. On the other hand, proactive people know they have responsibilities. Covey calls this responsibility, which means being able to choose how you will respond to a given stimulus or situation. If we want to be proactive, we need to pay attention to the circle of influence that falls within our circle of concern. In other words, we should work on changing the things we can. Because we put out good energy, our circle of influence will grow. On the other hand, reactive people focus on things that are important to them rather than on their circle of influence. It makes them blame things outside themselves, which sends out lousy energy and shrinks their circle of influence. Test that you should be proactive by doing the following. 1. Stop using reactive language and start using proactive language. Reactive: "He makes me very angry." I decide how I feel is what active means. Number 2. Switch reactive tasks for proactive ones. Number 2. Think about the end when you start. Start by knowing exactly where you want to go. Covey says that we can use our imaginations to create a vision of what we want to become and our consciences to decide what values will guide us. Most of us can find things to do quickly. We try hard to get promotions, raises, and more attention. But we only sometimes stop to think about what all this success and busyness mean. We never ask ourselves if the things we spend so much time on are the things that matter to us. Habit 2 says we should always start by thinking about where we want to end up. Start by knowing what you want to achieve, so we can be sure that the steps we are taking are the right ones. Covey says that knowing ourselves gives us the power to shape our own lives instead of living by default or based on the standards or preferences of others. It's also essential in business to start with the end in mind. As a manager, you must figure out how to get things done in the best way possible. But to be a leader, you must ensure your organization has the right strategic vision and ask, what are we trying to do? Before we can set goals for ourselves or as a group and reach them, we need to know what we believe. This process might need to be rewritten so that we can stand up for our values. Covey says that rescripting is figuring out the bad scripts that other people have written for you and replacing them with new hands that reflect your values. Also, we need to know where the center of our group is. What we value most gives us security, direction, knowledge, and power. Our centers have a significant effect on us. They affect everything we do, think about, and feel daily, as well as how we see and understand the world. Conversely, Covey says there are better options than these and that we should instead try to be principle-centered. We should figure out the rules that will always stay the same. It will give us the direction to ensure that what we do matches what we believe and value. You can see if the idea that you should think about the end goal from the beginning is accurate by doing the following. Number 1. Give your funeral a lot of thought. What do you do? What do people tell you about yourself? How would you describe your life so far? What about the other people there? What do you want them to say to you? Suppose you only had 30 days left to live. What would happen to your priorities? Start prioritizing these things. Number 2. Make a list of 3 to 5 goals you want to reach for each of your professional, personal, and community roles. 3. Talk about what scares you. Talking in public. Do you want feedback on a book you wrote? Write down the worst-case scenario for your biggest fear, and then picture how you'll deal with it. Write down what you're going to do about it. Number 3. First things first. We must put the most important things first to run our lives well. We need to be able to organize our daily tasks based on what is most important rather than what is most urgent. In Habit 2, we talked about how important it is to know our values and what we want to do. Habit 3 is about working toward these goals and putting our priorities into action daily and every moment. If we want to keep our discipline and stay on track toward our goals, we have to have the willpower to do things we don't want to do. We should always act based on our values, not our wants or whims. There are 2 things to do: those that need to be done right away and those that are more important. Look at this chart to learn how to make the most of your time. We do what needs to be done. We waste our time on unimportant things. That means we ignore quadrant 2, the most important. Suppose we only pay attention to quadrant I and spend all our time dealing with problems and crises. In that case, they will keep getting bigger and bigger until they take over our lives. It causes stress, burnout, and the need to keep putting out fires. If we focus on quadrant 3, we spend most of our time responding to urgent things, even though their perceived urgency is based on the priorities and expectations of others. It makes people only think about the short term, feel like they have no power, and have shallow or broken relationships. If we only pay attention to quadrant IV, we aren't taking care of ourselves. People often lose their jobs and become very dependent on others when they do this. The most important part of taking good care of yourself is in quadrant 2. It talks about things like making long-term plans, building relationships, getting in shape, and getting ready. We all know we should do these things, but we rarely do them because they seem necessary, like they need to be more. If we want to spend most of our time in quadrant 2, we have to learn how to say no to other things even if they seem important. We also need to know how to tell other people what to do. When we focus on quadrant 2, we are also thinking ahead, getting to the bottom of problems and preventing them from happening in the first place. It helps us apply the Pareto principle, which says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. People and results should always come first and time should always come last. Here are some ways you can get better at putting things first. Number 1. Think of something you've been putting off in quadrant 2. Please put it in writing and promise to do it. Number 2. Make your time management matrix to determine what is most important. Number 3. Try to guess how long you spend in each quadrant. Then for 3 days keep track of your time. How close to the mark were you? How much time did you spend in quadrant 2? Which is the essential quadrant? Number 4. Think about how everyone can win. If we want to have good relationships with people who depend on us, we must commit to making win-win situations that are good for everyone. Covey says that people interact with each other in 6 ways. Number 1. Everyone wins in a win-win situation. Agreements or solutions that make everyone happy are suitable for both sides. Number 2. You lose if I win. People who don't care about winning or losing get what they want by using their position, power, credentials, and personalities. Number 3. You win and I lose. People who think this way are quick to please and appease others and find strength in being liked or accepted. Number 4. Both sides lose in a lose-lose situation. When 2 win-lose people meet, when 2 determined, stubborn, ego-driven people talk to each other, a lose-lose occurs. Number 5. Win. People with a win mentality don't always want other people to lose, but that doesn't matter. They must get what they want. Number 6. Win-win or no deal. There is no deal if you can't find a solution that works for both sides. The best thing to do is make things so everyone wins. With win-lose or lose-win, one person seems to get what he wants at the moment, but the results hurt the relationship between the 2 people in the long run. It's essential to use the win-win or no deal option as a backup. When no deal is an option, we don't have to trick people into giving us what we want. We can be honest and try to figure out what is going on. For a solution that works for everyone, we need to think about being kind and brave. You must be nice and brave to go for a win-win. Having an abundance mentality or the idea that there's enough for everyone is another essential part of finding solutions that work for everyone. Most people think everything is zero-sum, or if you get something I don't. Is called a scarcity mentality. People with a scarcity mentality find it hard to give credit or praise to other people and find it hard to be happy for the success of others. When it comes to leading people, our influence will be more substantial. The more genuine we are, the more proactive we are. The more committed we are to a win-win situation. To get to win-win, focus on the results, not the ways of getting there, and on the problems, not the people. Lastly, the win-win way of thinking can't work in a world where everyone wants to win. As a company, we need to ensure that our reward system fits our goals and values and that we have suitable methods for win-win work. You can start to think win-win with these challenges. Number 1. Think about a conversation you'll be having soon where you'll be trying to find a solution or come to an agreement. Write down everything that the other person wants. Next, list how you can meet those needs with your offer. Number 2. Name 3 essential relationships with you. Consider how balanced each of these relationships feels to you. Do you give more than you take? Don't you give as much as you get? Write down 10 ways you can always give more than you take. Number 3. Give some thought to how you usually treat other people. Is it a win or a loss? How does that make you talk to other people differently? Can you figure out where this way of thinking came from? Find out if this way of dealing with people works well for you. Write all of this down. Email is a place where everyone quickly picks up bad habits. Instead of wasting time copying and pasting the same email templates daily, you should use HubSpot's free CRM to send personalized email templates in Gmail and Outlook. Number 5. First try to understand and then be understood. Before we can give advice, suggest solutions, or interact with someone in a way that works, we need to understand them and their point of view. We can do this if we listen with understanding. Let's say you go to an eye doctor and tell him you have trouble seeing clearly. He takes off his glasses and gives them to you, saying, "Try these on. They've worked for me for a long time." The problem gets worse when you put him on. How likely is it that you'll see that eye doctor again? When we talk to other people, we all do the same thing, which is sad. Before we figure out what's wrong, we offer a fix. We don't first try to figure out what's wrong. Habit 5 says that we should try to understand other people before we try to be understood. We need to learn how to listen if we want to try to understand. We can't just talk to someone in one way to get to know them. If someone thinks we are trying to trick her, she will start to doubt our intentions and won't feel safe telling us things. You must build your ability to listen with empathy on a foundation of openness and trust that comes from who you are. You must change how you think about everything to listen with empathy. Most of the time, what we want most is to be understood. Most people listen to be able to answer, not to understand. They are always either talking or preparing to speak. When we listen autobiographically, which means from our point of view, we tend to react in one of 4 ways. Number 1, decide if what is being said is true or not. Number 2, probe. Ask questions that are important to us. Number 3, give advice. Tell them what to do based on what we've learned. Number 4, try to figure out why the person did what they did by comparing their actions to ours. But if we change these answers to listening with empathy, we can talk to each other much better. This change takes time, but practicing empathic listening takes less time than clearing up misunderstandings or living with problems that aren't discussed or solved. The second part of habit 5 is then to be understood. It is also essential if you want to find answers that work for everyone. When we can explain our ideas clearly and show that we understand the other person's needs and worries, they are much more likely to be taken seriously. Here are a few ways to make trying to understand first a habit. Number 1, put your hands over your ears the next time you see 2 people talking and watch. What feelings are being shown that words might not be able to express? Was one person more interested than the other in what was being said? Make a note of what you saw. Number 2, the next time you give a presentation, show people you care about them. Start by giving a very detailed description of the audience's point of view. What are they dealing with? What you're going to say, how will it help them solve their problems? Number 6, synergize. We can create teamwork when we understand and value the differences in other people's points of view. This helps us find new ways to do things by being open and creative. All the other habits help us prepare for habit 6, which is the habit of working as a team when 1 + 1 = 3 or more and the total is more than the sum of what makes it up. For example, if you plant 2 plants close to each other, their roots will grow together and improve the soil, which will help both plants grow better than if they were grown separately. Synergy gives us new options and new ways to do things. It lets us decide as a group to get rid of the old scripts and start writing new ones. There's no doubt that you have to leave the safety of base camp and face a completely new and unknown wilderness. How do we add teamwork to something that is already there? Start with habits 4 and 5. You should think win-win and try to understand first. As soon as you know what you want, combine it with what another person or group wants. Then you won't both be wrong about the issue. Instead, you'll be on the same side, looking at the problem, figuring out everyone's needs, and working on a third option that will meet all of them. In the end, we don't have a transaction but a change. Both sides get what they want, and in the process they get to know each other better. By making people feel safe and trusted, they will be more open with each other and learn from each other's thoughts and ideas. The word for this is synergism. The real point of synergism is appreciating how people think, feel, and act. After all, there is no need for a third person if 2 people agree. When we find out someone doesn't agree with us, we can say, good. You look at it differently. Describe what you see. We try to understand each other's points of view first, and then we look for what's good and valuable about them to come up with new options and results that are good for everyone. With synergism, you can. To learn more about the world, think about how different people are. Find the good in other people and stay away from bad energy. When you need other people, dare to be open and try to get others to do the same. Look for a third way to solve the problem that will be better for everyone. Number 1, make a list of the people who bother you. Choose just one person. How are their views different? For a minute, try to see things from their point of view. Think about what they're going through and act like you're them. Does this help you figure out what they're saying? Now the next time you disagree with that person, try to understand what worries them and why they don't agree with you. If you know them well, it will be easier to change their mind, or your own. Number 2, make a list of the people you get along with well. Choose just one person. How are their views different? Now write down a time you and your team worked well together. Why? How did you get to where it was so easy to talk to people? How can you get those things to happen again? Number 7, get the saw in shape. If we want to be effective, we need to take the time to renew ourselves physically, spiritually, mentally, and socially. We can improve each habit if we work together to keep up with them. The 7th habit is to give yourself time to sharpen the saw or to start over. It is the most important habit because it helps you keep and improve your most valuable asset, which is yourself. There are 4 parts of who we are that we need to work on regularly and in a balanced way. The goal of continuous physical improvement is to work out our bodies in a way that helps it go more smoothly for us to work, change, and have fun. To stay in shape, we must get enough rest. Regular exercise will help you get more robust, more flexible, and more able to keep going for a long time. Concentrating on the physical aspect of habit 1 helps to strengthen the muscles of being proactive. Instead of reacting to things that keep us from being healthy, we make decisions based on our health's importance to us. Spiritual dimension. The point of renewing our spiritual selves is to take charge of our lives and make sure we stick to our values. To boost your spirit, you can. Every day, try to meditate, talk with nature. Great books and music are fun to read or listen to. Focusing on our spiritual side helps us practice habit 2 because it helps us constantly review and commit to our values, which helps us start with the end in mind. We must keep learning new things to keep our minds in good shape. To get your mind in shape again, you can read some good books. Write down your thoughts, things you've learned, and new ideas in a journal. You are watching TV shows that improve your life and mind would be best. Focusing on our mental dimension helps us practice habit 3 by managing ourselves well to get the most out of our time and resources. Social and emotional. The goal of renewing ourselves is to connect with people we care about. To make yourself feel better, you can try to learn a lot about other people. Donate to important projects that improve the lives of other people. Think about how much you have and try to help others do well. Renewing our social and emotional dimensions helps us practice habits 4, 5, and 6 by helping us see that there are win-win solutions, trying to understand others, and using synergism to find third options that are good for everyone. We can put in deposits of unconditional love every day to help at least one other person. As we work on these 4 ways to make ourselves better, we should also try to tell a good story for other people. We should get other people to move in a better direction by showing them that we believe in them, listening to them with empathy, and encouraging them to take action. The best thing about the 7 habits is that as we get better at one of them, we also get better at the others. Renewal is the process that gives us the power to grow and change in ways that make us better and better over time. Number 1, write down things you can do to relax in each of the 4 dimensions. Pick one thing to do in each area and write it down as a goal for the next week. It would be best if you thought about how well you did at the end of the week. What helped you reach each goal or kept you from getting it? Number 2, promise to write down a specific sharpen the saw activity for each of the 4 dimensions weekly. Do them and evaluate your performance and results. This is the topic for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you all in the following video.